Pirates built ships without shipyards, blueprints, or formal training, yet their vessels could outrun and outfight the world's best. How was that possible? What exact steps did they take with nothing but raw wood and stolen tools? Well, finding the right wood for a pirate ship meant more than just chopping down the nearest tree. Pirates needed massive amounts of quality timber, and getting it required creativity, connections, and sometimes outright theft. Most pirates didn't bother with legal lumber purchases. They raided coastal forests under cover of darkness, cutting down trees without asking permission. These midnight operations happened quickly, with lookouts posted to watch for angry landowners or government officials who might interrupt their illegal harvesting. The black market became their shopping mall. Corrupt suppliers would sell quality wood to anyone with enough gold coins and fewer questions. These deals happened in shadowy taverns where business got done with handshakes instead of contracts. Bribe port officials looked the other way when suspicious timber shipments arrived. Different types of wood served different purposes. Oak was the champion of hull construction. This hardwood could take punishment from storms and battles without rotting. Oak was basically the bodyguard of the wood world. Tough, reliable, and not easily intimidated. Pine filled a different role. Lightweight and easy to shape, pine became the go-to choice for masts and upper sections. Speed mattered just as much as strength, and pine helped keep the weight down while maintaining structural integrity. The tall, straight grain patterns made it perfect for creating flexible masts. Teak was the luxury option most pirates could only dream about. This tropical hardwood handled heat and moisture better than almost any other material. Most pirates only got teak by capturing it from wealthy merchant ships or raiding tropical ports where expensive timber was stored. Some pirates took a different approach entirely. Instead of starting from raw logs, they captured small merchant vessels and stripped them for building materials. These floating hardware stores provided pre-shaped beams ready for immediate use. Breaking down existing ships saved months of cutting and shaping work. The harvesting process was brutal manual labor. Pirates used axes and two-man saws to cut massive trees. Every log had to be moved using wooden carts and pure muscle power. No shortcuts existed for this back-breaking work. Teams of men worked in shifts to keep the operation moving quickly. Smart pirates seasoned their wood properly. Fresh-cut logs needed weeks of air drying to prevent warping once the ship hit salt water. Desperate crews sometimes used green wood and paid the price with leaky vessels that required constant repairs. Properly seasoned timber could mean the difference between a seaworthy ship and a floating disaster. Many crews established temporary camps near coastlines to avoid transporting heavy logs long distances. Bad wood was like a fair-weather friend. It looked fine until you really needed it to hold up under pressure. Experienced pirates developed an eye for spotting weak timber before it became a problem. Getting quality timber was just the beginning of the shipbuilding challenge. The actual construction of a pirate ship started with laying the keel, a massive beam that would become the backbone of the entire vessel. The keel had to be perfectly straight and incredibly strong because everything else would be built around it. This single piece would support the entire ship's weight and provide the foundation for all frames and planking that followed. A crooked or weak keel would doom the entire project from the start. Shaping the frames came next. These curved ribs gave the ship its shape and determined how it would move through water. Pirates used axes and adzes to carve each frame, following rough templates when available or relying on experience. Each rib had to match specific measurements to create a balanced hull design. Each frame had to be precisely positioned to create a hull that would cut through water efficiently while staying stable. The curve affected everything from speed to cargo capacity to whether the ship would tip over in strong winds. Mathematical precision wasn't their strong suit, but pirates learned through trial and error. Hull planking was where real craftsmanship showed. Pirates had two main methods. Lap strake meant overlapping planks like roof shingles, while carvel planking fitted them edge to edge for a smooth surface that reduced water resistance. The choice often depended on available materials and crew skills. Bending wood into proper curves required innovation. Pirates built makeshift steam boxes or used heated sand to make timber flexible. It was like trying to convince a stubborn plank to dance. You needed heat, pressure, and patience. Some crews even used boiling water and heavy stones to achieve the right curves. The scale was staggering. A small sloop required 50 to 100 trees just for basic construction. Medium-sized vessels needed even more lumber plus materials for interior spaces and specialized storage areas. The amount of raw material needed often surprised inexperienced builders. Assembly took place on wooden stocks or prepared beaches where gravity could assist with launch. Pirates had to position everything so the finished ship could reach deep water without getting stuck on land permanently. Planning the launch site was as important as building the ship itself. Recycling materials was practical and necessary. Wood from captured ships found new life as reinforcement pieces. A dull axe was about as useful as a wet match when trying to shape ship timbers. Smart crews maintained their tools religiously to avoid delays and accidents. Quality control required constant attention. Each joint had to be tight, every angle correct, and all elements aligned properly. Mistakes made early would cause problems throughout the entire project and potentially sink the finished vessel. Experienced carpenters checked and double-checked every connection. All this careful construction work meant nothing if water could get inside. Keeping ocean water outside the ship was literally a matter of life and death. So pirates developed various techniques for waterproofing their wooden vessels. Caulking was the primary defense against leaks. This process involved stuffing oakum, hemp fibers soaked in tar, into every gap between hull planks. The work was tedious, messy, and absolutely essential for survival at sea. Even the smallest gaps could let in enough water to eventually sink a ship. Pirates got tar from several sources. Some crews boiled pine resin to create their own pitch, while others bought ready-made tar from smugglers who didn't ask questions about their customers' intentions or activities. The quality of tar made a huge difference in how long the waterproofing would last. Application required skill and endurance. Hot tar had to be brushed into seams, then forced deep into gaps using specialized caulking irons. Working with tar was like wrestling with a giant ball of hot taffy that fought back. The sticky substance got everywhere and burned skin on contact. When tar supplies ran low, pirates got creative. Animal fat worked as emergency gap filler. Beeswax provided temporary sealing for smaller cracks. Pine sap could be harvested directly but required processing to become useful waterproofing material. Desperate crews sometimes used clay mixed with animal hair as a last resort. Hull sheathing added extra protection. Some pirates attached additional planks to the hulls outside, creating double wall systems that helped prevent leaks and protected against marine borers that loved eating wooden ships. These creatures could destroy a hull from the outside in just months. Copper sheathing was the ultimate upgrade, but few pirates could afford it. This metal protection was incredibly effective, but most came from captured merchant vessels that had been stripped of valuable materials. Installing copper required specialized skills that few pirate crews possessed. Maintenance never ended once the ship launched. Wood expands and contracts with temperature changes. New gaps appeared constantly, requiring ongoing attention during calm weather when crews had time for repairs. The tropical sun and salt water created constant challenges for waterproofing materials. Bilge pump systems were essential backup plans. No wooden ship was ever completely watertight, so hand-operated pumps removed water that inevitably found its way inside through tiny gaps and structural movement. The rhythm of pumping became a constant sound on any wooden vessel. Cheap caulking was like using tissue paper for bandages. It might work temporarily, but you'd regret it later. Quality materials made all the difference in long-term performance and crew survival. Pirates learned quickly that cutting corners on waterproofing was a deadly mistake. A watertight hull was useless without the ability to actually move through water. Creating the wind-powered systems that would actually move a pirate ship required specialized knowledge, quality materials, and precise installation techniques. Mast construction began with selecting the right timber. Single tall pine trees made ideal masts, but these giants were rare. More commonly, pirates joined hardwood sections together, creating composite masts strong enough to support massive sails and survive violent storms. Finding perfectly straight trees tall enough for main masts was often the biggest challenge. The main mast was the most critical component. This central pole carried the largest sail and took the most punishment from wind forces. It had to be perfectly vertical and securely anchored to distribute stress throughout the hull structure. A fallen mainmast could leave a ship helpless in enemy waters. Standing rigging consisted of ropes and cables that held masts upright against wind pressure. These lines had to be incredibly strong because a single failure could bring down an entire mast and leave the ship helpless. The web of supporting cables looked complex but followed specific patterns that experienced sailors understood instinctively. Running rigging controlled the sails themselves. These rope systems allowed crew members to raise, lower, and adjust sails based on conditions. A medium-sized pirate ship used 3,000 to 4,000 feet of rope for basic operations alone. Managing all these lines required coordination and experience. Hemp rope was standard material but demanded constant care. Pirates coated ropes with tar to improve durability and resist saltwater rot. Untreated rope in ocean conditions lasted about as long as ice cream in a furnace. Regular maintenance included checking for frayed sections and replacing worn segments before they failed. Sail construction was handled by specialized crew members who understood fabric properties. Canvas was preferred when available, but hemp cloth worked as backup. Every stitch had to withstand violent forces when wind caught the fabric during storms or battles. Sailmakers were among the most valued crew members on any ship. Spare sails were essential because damage was inevitable. Battles, storms, and normal wear constantly threatened sail integrity. A ship with torn sails couldn't escape enemies or outrun weather, making replacement sails crucial for survival. Smart captains carried enough spare canvas to replace every sail if necessary. Blocks and pulleys were carved from hardwood and functioned as mechanical advantage systems. These devices allowed small crews to manage enormous sails that would otherwise require dozens of people to operate effectively. The mechanical advantage meant a single man could control forces that would normally require 10. It was like maintaining a giant, complicated musical instrument that lived in the most destructive environment on Earth. Ropes stretched and frayed, sails developed tears, blocks wore out constantly from heavy use. Every component needed regular inspection and maintenance. Having a fast ship was great, but pirates needed more than speed to be successful. Converting a basic vessel into a proper pirate warship required extensive modifications to handle weapons, combat situations, and the specific needs of crews who made their living through maritime robbery. Deck reinforcement was the foundation of all weapon installations. Standard merchant ship decks weren't built to handle tremendous recoil forces from multiple cannons. Pirates added extra support beams throughout the structure to prevent their own weapons from destroying the ship. The deck had to be strong enough to support thousands of pounds of artillery. Gunport placement required careful engineering. Each cannon opening had to provide good firing angles while maintaining hull strength. Too many holes weakened the structure. Too few limited combat effectiveness and reduced the ship's intimidation factor. Pirates had to balance firepower against structural integrity in every design decision. Cannon selection depended on ship size and crew ambitions. Medium-sized pirate vessels typically mounted 4 to 20 cannons, ranging from small anti-personnel weapons to serious ship killers that could punch holes through enemy hulls. Heavier guns meant more destructive power, but also more weight and complexity. Swivel guns were like enormous shotguns that could rotate to follow targets. These smaller weapons were designed for close-range work against enemy crews during boarding actions, when pirates needed to clear opposing decks quickly. They could be loaded with various types of shot for different tactical situations. Securing heavy cannons presented unique challenges. These weapons weighed thousands of pounds and generated massive recoil forces. Iron brackets and thick ropes held them in position while allowing aiming adjustments during combat situations. Loose cannons could destroy a ship from the inside during rough weather. Elevated fighting positions were added through raised quarterdeck and forecastle structures. These platforms gave commanders better battlefield views and created defensive positions that were harder for enemy boarding parties to overrun during attacks. Height advantage was crucial in ship-to-ship combat situations. Hidden storage compartments became standard features. Secret spaces behind bulkheads provided secure storage for gold, weapons, and valuables that needed protection from enemies and crew members who might be tempted to steal. These hiding places were often cleverly disguised as structural elements. Boarding equipment was essential for the pirate business model. Grappling hooks and reinforced planks allowed pirates to transfer fighting men between vessels during attacks when they needed to capture enemy ships. Specialized tools made the difference between successful captures and failed attempts. A scary-looking ship was like wearing a convincing disguise. It did half the work before the fighting even started. Visual intimidation played a crucial role in pirate success by convincing merchant crews to surrender without battles. Fear was often more effective than actual firepower. Even the most perfectly designed pirate ship was just expensive driftwood without proper crew management. Operating a pirate ship required specialized knowledge, constant work, and careful organization to keep both the vessel and its crew functioning effectively in one of the world's most dangerous occupations. Crew sizes varied dramatically based on ship dimensions. Small vessels might operate with 20 men, while larger ships could carry 200 pirates. More crew meant more firepower, but also more mouths to feed and more personalities to manage. Finding the right balance between fighting capability and resource consumption was crucial. Specialized job roles kept operations running smoothly. The boatswain supervised rigging and deck work. Ship carpenters handled structural repairs. Sailmakers were invaluable because damaged sails meant dead ships. A good gunner was like a deadly librarian, organized, precise, and capable of creating very loud explosions. Each specialist brought skills that could mean the difference between life and death. Ship cooks had more influence than their job title suggested. Well-fed crews stayed loyal longer than men eating spoiled food. Quartermasters handled logistics and often mediated disputes between captains and crews during tense situations that could lead to mutiny. Food quality directly affected crew morale and fighting effectiveness. Written agreements weren't just romantic legends, they were practical management tools that outlined work division and profit sharing. These codes prevented arguments and established clear expectations for behavior, duties, and compensation during successful raids. Every crew member knew exactly what they could expect from their service. Daily maintenance tasks never ended. Ship structures constantly flexed, loosening planks and creating gaps. Sails suffered damage from wind stress. Ropes frayed from regular use and saltwater corrosion that ate away at the fibers. The harsh marine environment attacked every component of the ship constantly. Calm weather periods became intensive work sessions. Crew members scraped marine growth from hulls, reapplied protective tar, and pumped accumulated water from bilge areas that collected moisture from various sources throughout the ship. These maintenance periods were crucial for keeping the vessel seaworthy. A missing hammer might seem minor until emergency repairs were needed during a storm. Tool security was critical. Equipment was stored in locked chests to prevent loss or damage that could cripple repair efforts. Every tool had specific purposes and couldn't be easily replaced in the middle of the ocean. Emergency repair materials were stockpiled throughout the vessel. Extra timber, spare canvas, rope, and tar had to be immediately accessible because pirates couldn't visit ports for supplies when things broke during dangerous voyages. Self-sufficiency meant carrying everything needed for major repairs. It was like permanent camping, except the campsite floated on an ocean full of people who wanted to kill you. Self-sufficiency was essential for pirate operations in hostile waters. Every crew member had to be ready to handle multiple responsibilities when emergency struck. The continuous cycle of maintenance kept these floating communities functioning as both workplaces and weapon systems in an environment constantly trying to destroy them. Building a pirate ship from scratch was an incredible achievement that required knowledge, skill, and determination. These wooden vessels became legendary symbols of freedom and adventure on the high seas.